Hello, Facebook fans. Howard Kurtz here. I'm going to tell you what's really going on behind the scenes at the Democratic National Convention here in Philadelphia. You've probably read a lot of erudite analyses about the toppling of Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the impact on party unity and how the convention is going to play out over the next 4 days, and we'll get to a little bit of that. But this is a rare opportunity for me to speak to you from the heart about what really is happening here, what every single journalist and producer and executive, I'm getting some beeping in my ear, we can tell this is, we're just kind of doing this on the fly, what every single journalist and producer and executive and pundit and reporter is really talking about here. And I can tell you in 2 words, it's hot. It is really hot. I mean, it is freaking hot. And we are coming to you here live from an air-conditioned tent. And I use the phrase air conditioning rather loosely because it's a huge little village that the Fox folks have built here. And so there are cameras and computers and desks, and there's a catering outfit, and there are these little makeup rooms, and all of that. And yet, it's like 99 degrees outside, and so the air conditioning, besides being incredibly loud, at times during the day can't work that well. And when I was sitting in front of the camera right across the tent here to do my Media Buzz program for an hour and all the hot TV lights are on, I mean, it was suffocating up there. Every few minutes when you weren't watching, I was going like this and trying to get some more powder. And by the end of the show, getting a little hard to concentrate. You just have to sort of laser focus. So everybody that I see that I run into here is like, rolling their eyes like, can you believe this? We got 4 days of this. It's really hot. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Like, stop complaining, you elite media types. You have the greatest jobs in the world. You get to go cover these political conventions. You can't take a little heat. Get out of the media kitchen. And I'm sympathetic to that. I get it. You know, we have easy jobs. We're not coal miners. We're not factory workers on an assembly line. We use words, and we either write or talk for a living. So I'm very grateful to be here, to be in this position. When you walk out of here, as you have to do, by the way, to use the facilities, and I won't even get into the porta potties because, kids may be watching. You walk out of here, I mean, it is like walking into an oven. The steam just hits you in the face. And you might just stroll for a minute or 2 and come back, and you're hot all over again. Now, I have a whole theory about this, about why this matters. Because by Thursday, if this heat wave keeps up as it is supposed to, you're going to have this whole mass of journalists, 15,000 journalists descended on Philadelphia. Now remember, we've all just spent a week in Cleveland, where it wasn't quite so hot, by the way. But, you're working around the clock, you're eating the bad food, you're not getting much sleep. And you come here for the second convention, and it is just like a day in hell in terms of the weather. And by the way, the logistics have not been very smooth. A lot of people have had trouble getting their credentials. Security forces have been giving wrong information about what entrance to go in. I mean, all the usual stuff that you deal with at political conventions. And what that means is we're getting tired, and with a couple more days of this, we're going to be getting cranky. Now, why should you care? You don't. Come on, you got your own jobs and your own kids and your own lives, and I'm not asking for any sympathy whatsoever. But I learned on campaigns, which also tend to be, when you travel with a presidential campaign, you got the 6 a.m. baggage call, you're making 9 stops a day, you're eating fast food on the run, you're jumping on airplanes and on buses. When a campaign doesn't manage the press well, provide them with enough decent stuff to eat, make sure that their bags get to the hotel, all that stuff, you not only have an unhappy and frustrated press corps, but there's this little thing that seeps in where you say, well, these people can't handle a road trip with a bunch of reporters. How are they going to run the government? And that's why I think these things matter. And particularly, look, I've got it easy. I'm in this tent. I've seen some of my colleagues out on the street covering protesters, doing live shots under that hot Pennsylvania sun. It's pretty rough. All right, let's get a little bit to the substance as I, let me stay hydrated here. Very important. A lot of people are telling me that. And you've eaten a lot, drinking a lot of these. Okay, so the Debbie Wasserman Schultz story, originally, the DNC hacked email story, was kind of a sidebar story. I would say it was kind of a B- story. Now, I didn't think so. I looked at this and said, wait a minute. First of all, I don't like hacked emails, but when you have WikiLeaks from whatever source getting nearly 20,000 emails showing communications between these DNC officials, And you've got all these disparaging comments being made about Bernie Sanders, who has spent a year accusing the Democratic National Committee of being unfair to him, of tilting the playing field toward Hillary Clinton. And now it turns out Bernie was right. Bernie got burned. We're all getting burned here this week with the heat. And that is what created the pressure for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, first to say she wouldn't speak at the convention, then to say she would resign as the party chair, and now to say she won't even gavel in the convention. There's some emails with her name on it, and there's one just amazing email from a top official. These are not just, minor league schlubs, saying maybe we can get somebody to ask Sanders about his religion, because although he's Jewish, he said he's not very religious, and I heard he might be an atheist. Okay, how low can you go in politics? And so this story that really got overshadowed by Hillary Clinton's rollout of Tim Kaine, and it was kind of being treated as a sidebar story, and it was kind of being treated as, an inside the paper story on Saturday, a full day after this came out. It wasn't, a lot of cable chatter about it. This was a ticking time bomb. A ticking time bomb for the Democratic Party, for Hillary Clinton, and for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And it exploded on Sunday morning, and suddenly the newspapers, for example, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they didn't put the email story on the front page. Lots of other things were on the front page. That story was inside. Sunday morning, as I was getting ready for the program, I went to the New York Times homepage just to find the story. I didn't see it anywhere on the homepage. I clicked on the politics menu. I go way down, and finally I find the day-old story. Well, that was not the case today. Today, lead story, big banner headlines across the top of the front page. Emails force Wasserman Schultz resignation. A Democratic resignation forced by email leak, and all that. And by the way, what did we all talk about in presidential campaigns before there was email? Errant faxes? I mean, if you look at this whole year, we've talked about Hillary's emails, a private server, the very serious subject of the FBI investigation, and not properly handling classified information. And now it's another email leak, not necessarily the DNC's fault, but it certainly is blowing a hole in the picture of unity the Democrats are trying to paint here. And this matters for this reason. Let's face it, the Republican convention in Cleveland, where I just came from after a week, the coverage was very much about all the mishaps and mistakes, and it was kind of portrayed as a disorganized, dysfunctional convention. You had the Melania Trump plagiarism incident, you had Ted Cruz get booed off the stage, you had a lot of negative reviews for Donald Trump's speech, was described as a dark and fear-mongering speech. And by the way, if that convention was so terrible, and obviously he's been fighting with the press, and the press has been fighting with him since the day he got into this race, Nate Silver, the data guru at 538, who gave Trump no chance of winning the Republican nomination, now says it's plausible that he could win the presidency. He's got a 57.5% chance. I love that it's so specific, of winning the election if it were held tomorrow, held today, whatever. So now you have the Democratic convention, and up until the email leak and the Debbie Wasserman Schultz implosion, really, it wasn't even getting that much media attention because Trump was dominating. Trump always dominates. It's always, you get more traffic and clicks by writing and talking about Donald Trump than you do about the Democratic convention. And it seemed that Hillary Clinton was going to be able to bring the party together here in Philadelphia, and she's got all these high-powered speakers lined up, Michelle Obama, the president, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Bill Clinton, who knows how to give a good speech at convention time. And then suddenly, the press wakes up to the fact that this email, this huge cache of emails, not only has the stuff disparaging Clinton, but shows sometimes kind of cozy relationships between the press and the DNC. I reported on a Politico journalist sending his story to the DNC in advance, saying, per agreement, you're going to be pushback here. We all seek comment on stories, but we don't make agreements to show those stories in advance. And by the way, Politico just said that was a mistake, and it was a mistake. And you had DWS, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, complaining to NBC's Chuck Todd about Mika Brzezinski, the liberal co-host of MSNBC's Morning Joe, going off on her and complaining about the way Sanders was treating. We got to put a stop to this. She should apologize. Really came down on Mika. Mika ended up not even wanting to have a chat with her. So it really did sort of expose the inner workings between the way in which the DNC was working against Sanders, trying to work the press, trying to spin the press. We all get that all the time. And so now, because of Wasserman Schultz being forced to resign, we're all doing the story that we should have done. I mean, the story was covered, but in a kind of a sidebar way. Now, it's huge. It's the only story that matters at this convention. So the question is, will this continue to dominate the coverage once the big name speaker starts speaking, or will the press focus on something else? The other question is, will the heat ever let up, and how cranky are the journalists going to be? We need to just concentrate and do our jobs. I got an email from one guy in Central Valley, California, saying it's 108 degrees here, stop whining. So I'm going to stop whining for now. Thanks for watching.